College Matrikulasi Kejuruteraan Johor, English WE013, Semester 1, 2020-2021. Introduction to Reading and MUET CEFR. Hi everyone, now let's look at the presentation outline for Reading MUET CEFR. Test specification for reading, relating the skill tested to the CEFR levels. Reading sub-skills, relating the sub-skill tested to the CEFR levels. Sources of reading materials by text type. Part 1, multiple matching. Part 2, Part 3 and Part 4, multiple choice. Part 5, gap text. Part 6 and Part 7, multiple choice. Well, now let's look at the MUET and matriculation reading test specification. The features given there are the tests for MUET CFR and matriculation. The weighting for MUET CFR is 25% and matriculation is also 25%. Duration, the time given for reading is 75 minutes, whereas matriculation is 60 minutes. Number of questions for MUET CFR reading is 40 questions, while matriculation is 30 questions. Types of questions for MUET CFR and matriculation both are MCQs. Number of texts for MUET CFR are 7, while matriculation 4 texts. The CFR level tested for MUET CFR is A2 to C1, while for matriculation is from A2 to B2.
Test part for MUET CEFR. Part 1, the text length is 3 short texts of the same text type, thematically linked, amounting to a total of 100 to 150 words. And the questions type is multiple matching with 3 texts preceded by 4 multiple matching questions, and the number of questions is 4. Part 2 and Part 3 of MUET CEFR, there are 2 texts, each of 300 to 450, and the question type is MCQ with 3 options, and the number of questions is 10. Part 4, the text length for MUET CEFR is 2 independent texts based on the same theme, and it is not necessary of the same text type, which amounting to a total of 700 to 800 words. And the question type is 2 MCQ based on text 1, 2 MCQs based on text 2, and 2 MCQs comparing the 2 texts with 3 options. And the number of questions is 6. Part 5, the text length is 1 text of 500 to 600 words with question type a gap text with 6 missing sentences, 7 options, and the number of questions is 6. While Part 6 and Part 7, the text length is 2 texts of 700 to 900 words each, and the question type is MCQ with 4 options, and the number of questions is 14. Total number of the questions altogether is 40. That is for MUET CEFR. Now we compare with matriculation. The test part for Part 1 for matriculation, the text length is for Part 1 is 100 to 150 words with the question type multiple matching question with 3 options, and the number of questions is 8. For Part 2 and Part 3 for matriculation syllabus, the text length is 300 to 450 words, and the question types for Part 2 is multiple choice question with 3 options, and also for Part 3, which is the same. And the number of questions for Part 2 and Part 3 for matriculation is 8. And lastly, For part 4 for matriculation, syllabus is part 4 with a total number of 700 to 800 words, and the question type is multiple matching question with 3 options and 2 short texts. And the number of questions for matriculation is 6. And the total number of questions for matriculation is 30. Reading skills for MUET CEFR and matriculation syllabus are tests that range from understanding explicitly stated information in sentences at A2 level to intertextuality at higher levels. Reading skill for MUET CEFR test part for part 1, the descriptor is A2 and the CEFR level is can understand short and simple text on familiar matter of a concrete type which consists of high frequency, everyday or job related language. And the second one, can understand short simple text containing the highest frequency vocabulary, including a proportions of shared international vocabulary items. As for part 2 and 3, the descriptor is for B1 and the CEFR level shows can read straightforward factual text on subjects related to his or her field and interest with a satisfactory level of comprehension. Part 4 and Part 5, the descriptor is B2 and the CEFR level is 1, can read with a large degree of independence, adapting style and speed of reading to different texts and purposes, and using appropriate reference sources selectively. The second one has a broad active reading vocabulary but may experience some difficulty with low frequency idioms. And as for MUET CEFR part 6 and 7, the descriptor is C1 and the CEFR level is 1, can understand in detail lengthy complex text whether or not they related to his or her own area of specialty, provided he or she can reread difficult section. Second one, can understand a wide range of text including literary writing, newspaper or magazine, articles and specialized academic or professional publications, provided that there are opportunities for rereading. Now, let's compare with matriculation. The reading skill tested for part 1, the descriptor is A2 and for CEFR level is student can understand short, simple text on familiar matters of a concrete type which consists of high frequency everyday or job related language. The second one can understand short, simple text containing the highest frequency vocabulary, including a proportions of shared international vocabulary items. For matriculation, part 2 and part 3, the descriptor is B1 and the CEFR level shows can read straightforward factual text on subjects related to his or her fields and interest with satisfactory level of comprehension. And as for matriculation part 4, the descriptor is band 2 and the CEFR level is can read with large degree of independence, adapting style and speed of reading to different texts and purposes, and using appropriate reference sources selectively. And the second one has a broad active reading vocabulary but may experience some difficulty with low-frequency idioms.
Alright, now let's look at the test sub-skill tested to the CEFR level. For MUET CEFR, test part 1, the level for CEFR is A2. The key reading sub-skills is identifying specific information. For part 2, the CEFR level is B1. The key reading sub-skills are inferencing, identifying details, and examples from sources to support an argument, identifying the main ideas and supporting details, and predicting outcomes. For part 4, 2 independent tests, the key reading sub-skills are: first, distinguishing facts and opinions, interpreting text for author's intention, attitude, and style. Next, transferring information from linear to non-linear text. Next, categorizing similarities and differences across text. And lastly, comparing and evaluating information in different texts. For part 5, the test part, testing on gap text, the CEFR level is B2. And the key reading sub-skills are identifying the purpose of a paragraph or text, recognizing the text structure on the whole text, identifying cause and effect relationship in a text, and recognizing text content features, detail, opinion, emotions, attitude, writer's purpose, main idea, and implication. And part 6 and 7, the CEFR level is C1. And the key reading sub-skill is recognizing text organization features, which are exemplification, comparison, and reference. Now let's have a look at matriculation sub-skills. The test part for part 1 is CFR level is A2. For part 2, the CFR level is B1. Part 3, the CFR level is B1 still. And for part 4, the CFR level is B2. We do not have part 5, part 6, and part 7. As for the key reading sub-skills, for part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4 are the same, which are reading for main ideas and specific information, deriving meaning from context, identifying main ideas and supporting details, understanding text organization features, distinguishing relevant from the irrelevant information, interpreting author's intention, attitude, and views, distinguishing facts and opinions, comparing and evaluating information in different texts, which are linear and non-linear, inferencing and drawing conclusions, and finally, predicting outcomes. That's the end of our introduction to MUET reading skills. So thank you, and let's see in the next class.